My name is Leah. I was born in Salvador, under a blazing sun that never seemed to rest, surrounded by the city's constant electric hum. Every morning, I'd walk to school in my faded uniform, my sandals so heavily patched I'd lost count of the repairs. My classmates had a name for me, Rag Girl. They laughed at me. They beat me because I was poor. But they had no idea what I was hiding. The truth is, I didn't even know myself, not until the day they pushed me too far. Salvador never sleeps. Its lifeblood is the roar of buzzing colectivos, the cries of vendors selling everything from grilled cheese on a stick to coconut candy, the sound of axe music pouring from open doorways. It's a city of contrasts, where glass skyscrapers cast long shadows over sprawling markets. My life was lived entirely in those shadows. Our home was a single room with a tin roof that sang a sad song whenever it rained. My mother, my May, was the strongest person I knew. Before the sun even considered rising, she'd be up, grinding beans to make the acreage she sold at a roadside stall. That aroma, the sizzle of it frying, was the first thing I knew every morning. It was the smell of survival, the smell of love. She worked until her hands were raw, all so I could go to school. So my life could be different. I was her single, precious dream. But to the other kids at school, I was just a joke. The ringleader of the pack was a boy named Thiago. His father was some wealthy importer, and Thiago wore his privilege like a designer suit. His uniform was always crisp, his shoes were polished leather, and a thin gold chain shone at his neck. To him and his friends, my patched pockets were a personal invitation for cruelty. I remember the first time they trapped me behind the school toilets. The air was thick and smelled of damp earth. Thiago just sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "Where's your lunch money, Leah? Or did your mother forget to beg for you today?" His friends howled with laughter. I tried to walk away, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, but they just shoved me to the ground. My books scattered in the red dust. I felt their fists on my back, a foot pressing my face into the dirt. I didn't cry. "Save your tears for home, Leah," May always said. "To the world, you show only stone." So I took it. My silence only seemed to fuel their rage. It became a daily ritual. And it escalated. One day, they found my lunch, 2 pieces of acreage May had carefully wrapped for me. Thiago snatched it, sniffed it like it was poison, and hurled it to the ground, grinding it into the dust with his heel. "My dog wouldn't eat this garbage," he spat. The laughter that followed was sharper than any punch. He wasn't just crushing food. He was crushing my mother's hard work, her sacrifice. My only friend was a girl named Liana. She was quiet, like me. Sometimes she'd share her snacks when no one was watching, her face a mask of sorrow. "Just ignore them, Leah," she'd whisper. But how do you ignore something that's determined to erase you? Their words were starting to sink in, and I felt myself starting to believe I was worthless, wishing I could just disappear. One evening, May saw the whole story in my eyes. I didn't have to utter a single word. She sat beside me on our sleeping mat, her work-roughened hand gently taking mine. "They're hurting you," she whispered. The dam broke, and I finally let out all the tears I'd been holding back. She wiped them away and reached for a small, wooden box. Inside, nestled on a piece of soft cloth, lay a bracelet. It was made of deep red beads strung on a simple leather cord. They felt ancient, worn smooth by generations of touch. "This was your grandmother's," she said, her voice full of reverence. "She was a great woman, not with money, but with spirit. They said she could speak to the ancestors. This bracelet is all I have left of her. It will protect you." I didn't need her to explain. In our culture, beads like this were a link to the orixes, a shield of heritage. She tied it around my wrist. A strange, quiet warmth spread up my arm. I wasn't sure if I believed in magic, but I believed in my mother. And her love felt like the most powerful force in the world. So I wore it. The next day at school, the red beads were a stark contrast against my faded uniform. Of course, Thiago noticed immediately. During the lunch break, he and his friends cornered me by the old mango tree. "Look what the rag girl has now," Thiago shouted, pointing at my wrist. "Trying to look rich with your little trinket? Let me see it." He lunged for my arm. I instinctively pulled back, but he was stronger. His friends grabbed my shoulders, holding me in place. This felt different. This time, they weren't just taking my dignity. They were trying to steal the last piece of my family I had, the symbol of my mother's hope. And as Thiago's fingers closed around the bracelet and yanked, something inside me shattered. It wasn't a thought. It was a physical sensation, like a wire stretched too tight for too long had finally snapped. The world went utterly silent. The jeers, the city noise, the birds in the mango tree, all of it just ceased to exist. My focus narrowed to Thiago's hand on my wrist. A cold fire ignited in my chest. A power that felt immense and ancient. It wasn't my anger. It was something else. Something older. I heard a voice, deep and commanding, not in my ears, but vibrating in my bones. It said one word. Enough. My body moved on its own. With a strength that was not mine, my hand shot up and clamped around Thiago's wrist. His eyes widened in shock. He tried to pull away, but he couldn't budge. It was like his hand was caught in a steel vise. I lifted my head and looked directly at him. But the eyes he met were not mine. They weren't the eyes of a scared little girl. They were cold, ancient, and filled with a terrifying authority. My voice emerged, but it was layered, deeper, like two voices speaking in unison. "You'll touch nothing that belongs to this line." Pure, primal fear washed over Thiago's face. He let go of the bracelet, as if it had burned him. The moment I released his wrist, he stumbled back, tripped over his own feet, and fell hard into the dust. His friends let go of me and retreated, their faces pale with shock. The entire schoolyard, the usual stage for my daily humiliation, was dead silent. Nobody was laughing. They were all staring, not at the rag girl, but at whatever it was I had just become. I didn't need to say anything else. I stood there for a moment as the cold energy slowly receded, leaving me feeling strangely hollow. Then, I turned and walked away. The crowd of students literally parted for me. I saw Liana near the wall, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. Later, the school principal, Senor Silva, called me into his office. I braced myself for trouble, but he just looked at me for a long time. He had seen the entire incident from his window. "Thiago won't be bothering you again, Leah," he finally said, his voice quiet. He had a strange look in his eyes, a look of understanding, like he'd heard the old stories about the Orixes protecting their own. That day changed everything. There was the Leah before that moment and the Leah after. Something ancient and powerful had woken up inside me, and I knew my life would never be the same again. If you've ever felt like you were at your breaking point, share your story in the comments. And make sure to subscribe because my journey was only just beginning. When I went to school the next day, the world had shifted. The other kids didn't whisper insults. They fell silent when I walked past. Thiago and his friends would physically cross to the other side of the hall to avoid me. The constant fear I had lived with was gone. In its place was a quiet, unshakable confidence. I hadn't become a bully, but I was no longer a victim. I carried an energy that no one dared to test. Liana approached me, her fear now replaced with wide-eyed curiosity. "What happened, Leah?" she whispered. I just looked down at the red beaded bracelet on my wrist. It felt warm against my skin. "I just remembered who I am," I told her, and for the first time, it felt completely true. That evening, I sat with May while she counted her earnings. She smiled at me, a true, deep smile this time. She could see a light in my eyes that had been extinguished for far too long. I didn't tell her what happened. How could I possibly explain it? But as I looked at the bracelet, I understood. They beat me because they thought I was poor. They were wrong. I wasn't poor at all. I was rich in a way money could never buy. Rich in spirit, in history, and in the blood of ancestors who refused to let their line be broken. And I was only just beginning to discover my inheritance.